Okay, we talked about this last week, but I think since we were on air and it's kind of a few things have been developed and we've had a week to think about it now as well, which I think is important because sometimes your first reaction is not always the best one, and obviously I'm going to refer to the David Sims scenario. Since we talked about it last week, Puck Daddy picked it up, a few others picked it up in North America. It became a bit of a deal considering, they have the anyone can play thing going on over there. Various LGBTQ outlets have picked it up and ran with it in their publications and online. The biggest thing for me in terms of all of this is we're still, 8, 9, 10 days down the line and there's been no official reaction from the league, which I just can't fathom at all. But I think that might well be systematic of the way, the league's structured, and the fact that the chairman of the league is also the chairman of Sheffield Steelers and, is also probably, the culprit's friend. Last week I pretty much said, get him some education, but I wouldn't really like to see him out of the league. And I don't think my opinion has changed, but I also think, and I don't know if I made it clear last week, I also think that is his last, if he is, and it looks like he is getting away with it so far, that would be his last chance for me as well. I just think the attention that it's brought on the league is negative attention again, and the fact that the Elite League have not given any sort of reaction at all, even to condemn the mealy-mouthed apology, the first apology we got for Sheffield, I think just generally the way it's been handled has been pretty atrocious, and I was hoping, after we recorded last week, we would be able to just put it to bed, but the fact that there's been no reaction for me, Graham, has just been mealy-mouthed. It's been sweep it under the carpet again. It's just been, there's no strong leadership, is there?
There's not. For me, it's moved on now. It's moved on from being a Sims incident, which has unfortunately brought the league into it, to now it shows up all the weaknesses of the league setup as we have it, because it hasn't gone away. It's made Teen Vogue magazine and various other, major social media outlets. And I think for me, the problem is that if the league had responded strongly with the appropriate language, in support of the LGBTQ community and send out the right messages and not just PR, just, actually be seen to be doing something, be seen to embrace the community and talk to them and have that kind of dialogue. But what do you get? You get silence. You get quick boys, circle the wagons and let's say nothing about it. And to me, that only, for a start, it helps the people who wish to use this as a vehicle to attack the league. And although it sounds like we're having to go at the league, we're just frustrated at the lack of the league's ability to defend itself. The whys and the wherefores about Dave Sims, we talked about that last week, and I haven't changed my mind at all. I don't want to see the guy fired. I think a lot of people, maybe most people, have been a little bit taken aback. I know I have, by the full extent to which this has gone. And I think there's lessons to be learned from that. I don't like, and I'm going to say it again, I said it last week, I don't like a lot of the reaction that's come from people who are using this as a bandwagon to further their own agendas. There's a good cause, and then there's really taking that to the limit and beyond, and that's definitely happening. No matter how good a cause it is. Some of these people call themselves fans of the sport. Well, they might want to think about that. So, yeah, as I say, I think in terms of the undue attention that it's received, is it undue? I don't know. Is it justified? Well, yeah, maybe possibly in the world as it is nowadays. But the league's, and when we see the league, what we're talking about the ownership. We're not just talking about Tony Smith. We're talking about the ownership. Their inability to have somebody who appears to be in charge, who can offer something definitive that's going to help diffuse the situation. That is all kinds of wrong, in my view, and it kind of backs up what you're saying. You can't just, close your eyes and put your hands over your ears and hope that it's going to go away. And that seems to be the league reaction. I'm sure there's plenty of dialogue going on behind the scenes. We know that EIHL media guys, Rob and Craig, have been getting a hard time. Well, anybody who's given them personally a hard time don't understand the job that they're there to do. They can only use what they're given.
Yeah.
So, and likewise, those two shouldn't take it personally, however much it might come across from some people as maybe being the case, and I'm sure they are getting some personal flack. I saw some reaction from Rob on that the other night. But, they're not the league. We know who the league are. And the league need to respond, be it through Rob Craig or through other channels. The league as an entity need to respond, because at the moment they are just being seen to be impotent and incompetent by doing nothing. This is not one of these situations. In business, the decision to do nothing is in itself a decision. That's, I've been in that situation many times in business. This, I would suggest, is not one of these situations where you want to do nothing. You want to be proactive. You want to be seen to be saying and doing all the right things to try and defuse this situation. But as I say, the fact the league has chosen to do nothing so far is pretty much unforgivable. And I think it needs to, and it's not going to go away. Something needs to be said, some kind of formal. Somebody needs to take charge of it, and okay, it should be Tony Smith, but however awkward that might be for him, given that it was his guy that caused the problem in the first place, somebody needs to get a grip. Maybe Neil Black needs to come forward, but somebody needs to come forward, speaking for the league and going public on what the league are doing about this. And that doesn't mean, we're going to sack Dave Sims. What it means is lessons have been learned. We need to embrace this community. We're going to, take various courses of action to ensure that something like this doesn't happen again. And it's awareness, it's education, it's everything else. The fact the league is saying nothing is absolutely beyond belief. So there you go.
Yeah, it's not just. The other 9 clubs have to look at it as well. We are struggling to get sponsors. We're struggling to get money into the game. We're struggling to get coverage in the media. And here's one of your most prominent figures just making a complete tit of it. The silence is deafening. I've no doubt you're right, Graham, there's probably stuff going on in the background, but it's just not been good enough. Jennifer, we've heard the 2 old codgers getting their piece in. Obviously, there is a few years between yourselves and Graham and I, you and Stephen. What's the sort of opinion round about? Is there a difference of opinion in your sort of age group, your generation?
Probably with us, it's less unusual for us to, it's more unusual for us to use language as such as he has, because I think as you kind of go through the generations, acceptance of change and acceptance of everybody into society is just a little bit more easier for generations down the line, just because it's more commonplace for us. And I do strongly believe that this is an instance where it's dinosaur views. But like, if this had happened to any of us in our work, do you know what I mean? We would be facing disciplinary action. You'd be getting an absolute boot. HR would be right up your backside, totally coming down on you like a ton of bricks. Do you know what I mean? There's no place for that in any workplace at all, and it's been brought into the sport. It's very, very disappointing, but I think the issue in this is because it's not the first instance. There have been lots of instances over the years that people have gone back, they've trawled them up just to show that this isn't an isolated incident and showing that it is an actual problem with this particular person. I do strongly believe what you've said, that the fact that we are sitting here the following Monday and still not heard anything from the league, that's either they're taking their time in doing what they're saying, they're either taking advice, which I genuinely hope that they are taking advice, but you're right, there does have to be a huge education opportunity in what's correct to say and what isn't correct to say.
How hard is it though for the league to just say, we condemn what happened at Sheffield Arena and the words echoed by David Sims, and we're looking into ways to deal with it, or words to that effect? How hard can that be? And then we know they're dealing with it in the background, rather than us sitting here talking about there's been no response from the league for over a week. It's not hard, it's not difficult. I was going to say though, do you think, I don't know who does the announcing at Coventry, do you think it would have been Joe, the announcer at Coventry Blaze, saying what he said, there would be as much furore about it? Or is it all centred around David Sims, do you think, Stephen?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. Obviously, Simsy has his fans and the people who are not so keen on him. And when things like this happen, you'll see certain bloggers who have been, I'm not even going to name them, but someone who's been prominent in all of this, just going full bore attack on Sims, and you're thinking, do you actually believe in this, in the cause, or are you just using it as a method to attack someone? And sometimes it's a very thin line. I don't know. It's a difficult one to say if that.
Well, you weren't on the show last week, so you didn't really get a chance to talk about it. What is your views on the whole situation?
I think it's just someone from a different generation using words that are no longer acceptable to people of the younger generation. I don't think,
Is that a valid reason, though? I mean,
no, it's not a valid reason at all.
Graham and I are kind of almost up there with Simsy in age, but you never really hear us talking like that.
No, it's not a valid reason. I'm just saying it was more poor choice of words and malicious intent, I think, is what the scenario is here. I know you can go through his Twitter and other things and see him saying all these different things, but it's all similar. There's loads of words from, like, my mum would say and things like that I would never dream of saying, and it's just, it's a different generational thing, and it's difficult. All they have to say is we're talking to Stonewall or whoever, as you said, just we're going to get advice, we're going to maybe get a few courses arranged for people to go on where they can see why this isn't acceptable anymore and just draw a line under it. But as everyone else has said, the fact that it just seems to be drawn out and keep going on and on without any words on it, it does make you think, are they just hoping that if they just ignore it long enough that will all go away? And as you said, with the press in America and North America picking up on it, it's not one of these things that we can just hope will go away. It really needs to be addressed, and the longer it's not addressed, the worse it looks for the league.
Can you imagine, sorry to interrupt, but can you imagine if the league actually had a commercial director right now? Can you imagine how hard that job would be right now? To be out there, going out to major corporations, trying to attract, your job is to bring in significant income into the league to justify your existence. That's why you've been brought in. Can you imagine going and doing presentations and talking to boards of directors and all that sort of stuff? And all they have to do is go on Twitter and check things out for 5 or 10 minutes and see the kind of furore that's going on around the league. I mean, that would be an absolutely impossible job right now. So it's probably just as well we don't have someone in that position. But, at the timing you should be selling the league for the incoming sponsorship for next season, it's also happening at a very bad time as well. Not that there's any good time for it to happen. But, with in the lead up to the playoffs, we've had the kerfuffle over the webcast for the Challenge Cup. I mean, it's not been a good week or two for the EIHL, but rather than get on the front foot and be seen to be doing something about it, this silence is just making things worse. Yep. So, horrendous.
One of the things that kind of really, and I might be going out on a limb here, and this is going to go down like a lead balloon, one of the things that really annoys me sometimes is, you get comments about, especially like us being in the podcast, we're just amateurs, we're just fans, what do we know? I'm sorry, the league's run by amateurs, the league's run by fans. Do you know what I mean? They're not any better. They've not got any better ideas sometimes. There's nothing, nobody's come out with anything astounding that's moved the league on. Nobody seems to be in charge of the league. So, I just don't buy that anymore. I'm not buying into it. Things have happened over the last few years. You just indicate that left, right and centre. So, but there's no money to get real professionals into this league, and that's just the way it is. I was sitting in McDonald's looking after my waistline before the game on Saturday, and I got talking to a fan. I knew her face, but I never really spoken to her before. And we were having a wee chat, and she was saying how, the club's lost that little bit of community involvement. We don't seem to be doing as much around the schools. You used to take your kids, they could meet the players. It's all very sterile now, and it's all in this attempt, I think it's an attempt to be more professional, but I just think it's backfiring. We're not there yet. I mean, I've always kind of going back to football all the time, but being a St Mirren supporter, they attract roughly the same number of people as we do to games, and they're probably far more professional people running that club, and they don't have this sort of quest to distance themselves, and that's what I think's been happening. I think that we're losing that, but that's me kind of going off on a tangent. I think it's something that has to be addressed for next year, because I kind of really worry. It kind of brings me on to the next sort of topic we were going to talk about, and that's been the